So once again, we're going to start talking about printmaking in the 16th century. We're going to focus on the 1500s, but printmaking did actually begin in about 1452-ish, shortly after the Gutenberg press came out. There were other ideas, other presses that were coming out, and a couple people went, "Ooh, I have an idea." So in your handouts, we'll talk a little bit about printmaking. When did it start? There's actually scholarly people that believe ancient Egypt. We actually have documented things to where China was actually doing paper rubbings, or not paper, but rubbings of reliefs that they had. So they would take a piece of their paper, put it up against something, and rub ink onto it, only on the lifted areas, and they pull it off, and now they have this pretty thing. The picture on the top right there in your handout, that's actually a relief that was done in modern period, but using the techniques that they used back then. They don't have a lot of good excellent pieces that actually exist from the time period, but they believe China had started somewhere in 100 AD. So long before Europe was doing it. So kind of a cool little fact right there. Ancient Egypt actually, which I don't have in your article there, but ancient Egypt actually has a lot of relief paintings that they did. They would make a relief and then they would hand paint the actual relief. Similar, but not exactly, obviously not put on any type of paper or papyrus or anything. But they did actually do something which was along the lines, but not exactly what we're going to talk about.
Like the hieroglyphics on the wall.
Correct. Actually, to kind of tie this into hieroglyphics, I actually just read something recently. It was really cool on how they did the hieroglyphs on the wall. And they actually had what we would call chalk line. They had their own version of chalk line to where they could actually create quadrants on the walls so that they could actually make everything proportionate like it's supposed to be. Kind of like how modern artistry sometimes we'll do a little bit of grid work, or we'll make our own grid lines.
I think that's how they actually plotted out the pyramids too, is using chalk lines.
So they had their own. It was kind of, I thought it was really cool. It was like they had chalk line. Wow, it wasn't chalk. Obviously, it was their own version of it. But I just thought that was one of the coolest little tidbits. Not exactly pertinent to what we talked to, but it just little things here and there. Sorry. Hieroglyphs. So my other thing, if you don't know, I didn't introduce myself. Excuse me. My name's Fadi Okahiri. I'm the Baron of Dunor, and this is one of my specialties that I've studied in printmaking. I also have a big study in ancient languages, specifically ancient Egyptian, and also getting into Coptic as well. So ancient Egyptian comes into the hieroglyphs, the Demotic, which evolved into what we call Coptic nowadays. So the idea of printmaking is taking an image from something and transferring it to something else. In this case, we're going to take it from a metal plate and we're going to put it onto a piece of paper. 1450, that's kind of where we start doing it. The first person we're going to talk to before we get into and yes, we are actually going to print things. And if you would like to print, you are more than welcome to come up and try to ink a plate and try to print it and see how it turns out and see how finicky it can be, because it can be very finicky. The machine's not just dialed in just right, or your plate's just not just right. There's so many little things that the paper sometimes can just be not just right. And we are using modern paper, so there is that. So the first person we're going to talk to is actually one of the guys I really idolize, Daniel Hopfer. Originally, he was an armorer. He did a lot of amazing decal decorations on armor for several different monarchs. He was very, very well known for that. He's actually considered one of the first people to actually do printmaking from a plate of steel. He started with steel. He was born in 1471, he died in 1533. He actually became an Augsburg citizen during that time frame. One of his notable works is they had one called The Virgin and the Child, and he had another one called The Three German Soldiers with halberds and a dog. I love how they named their things. It's not just one little thing, they want to name the whole thing. He has probably 100 more. There are many out there that they're not sure when they were done, because the idea of dating your prints didn't come out till later. So later prints, as artists did it, there became a kind of a standard way of putting your name on the thing and then also dating when you printed it. Back when we started it, they didn't really do it. They were good at putting their names on things in some artistic fashion, but they weren't good about saying, oh, I did this in 1505 or 1510 or whatever. So another one a lot of people know was Albrecht Dürer. Dürer he's considered like the master printmaker. He was an artist, he was a painter, but he is also known as the best German printmaker ever. So he kind of set the standard for everyone to go, wow. Matter of fact, this one here, this is a plate I'm working on right now. These are all hand engraved. You can just try not to rub off the black lines. So those are hand engraved. I can always retrace it or just make it up. Sure, it's artistry, right? That's one he called the rhinoceros. You can kind of see where I've started to rub off the markings as I make my line so I know where I am. All done by hand, just using a steel awl. I also have some other tools to help with corrections, a burnisher and a scraper. Those help you if you make mistakes. You can almost erase a line. Almost. I haven't gotten really, really perfect with that yet. I'm still learning the process of erasing on copper. But I had another plate I've done recently for our anniversary for Dunmore. I made a plate and I printed that as our champions gifts. And that was, the funny thing is you look at the plate and you're like, wow, that's just simple. It's just a couple lines with a tower and some words. It was probably harder than any of the other plates I ever did. I did it 4 times, by the way, on 4 different copper plates until I was happy with the last one. Because it was so precise and the metal doesn't always cooperate. So you're going, oh, I just scratched all the way across. Let me try to fill it in with beeswax. Nope, it's still printing. Let me try something else. Just trying to learn how, and then that became, all right, they had to make mistakes back then. How did they fix it? And that's where I discovered burnishing tools and specific tools for scraping off the layer of copper that you've pulled up, et cetera, et cetera. So it's always a learning process. Today, we are going to, actually, you can pick a plate and you can print one of my plates. I have both steel and copper. And then I also have a couple pieces of copper, little 2-inch rounds. If you want to draw something with one of my scribes, you are more than welcome to, and we'll try to print it and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so does anybody want to make their own? And if you don't want to make one too, that's fine. Happy to just, you've done it before. Yeah. So some of these are repeats. Previously I did it as an etching class, so I would use acid etching, or I call salt etching, to make the plates. This, because it's copper, we can actually hand carve or engrave your image onto it, because the copper is softer than the steel tip that we'll use. So I made this for a 2-hour class on purpose, because sometimes you might get done and be great in 45 minutes, but then everybody else might be 2 hours. So I want to give us plenty of time to work with this. Any questions on printmaking itself? I can give you more history if you really want, but I don't want to inundate us with too much. I really want this to be a hands-on class so you can kind of see and get a feel for what it is.
You have a lot of history on your website too.
Yep, I do have several classes I've already taught on my website. I can give you the link to that if you're interested. There are other handouts I've done from other classes, acid etchings, the copper plates. These are my latest copper plates that I've done with the prints along with them. Each of them progressively learning more and more. The one I'm doing now is actually going to be a double engraved plate, because I'll engrave it first and then I'll go back and engrave it again to add shadowing and shade. So it's a 2-step process besides just drawing the picture on there. So it's a little more detailed, a little more cross-hatching, and whereas the other ones, most of the cross-hatching I did kind of at the same time. This one is because I wanted to go across the grains of the animal itself, because shadows don't just come out where you want them to, because with the animal. Okay, so let me get some tools out for you. There it is. So we have several different types of tools you can use for this. Traditionally, what I've been using is a steel awl. It's called a scratching awl. The thing I learned a lot is that tip has to be very, 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 very sharp. So do be careful, because it will, if you put enough pressure, you will definitely cut yourself, so be careful. I also have some other dental tools. The dental tools are great, but they don't etch as deeply. So they're better for when I'm doing the acid etching or those kind of things. Or like what I'm going to try to do with specifically, I want to try to do it with when I do the shadowing, use a lighter tool so it doesn't carve as deep into the copper. See kind of variations I get within the image.
So what is the difference between printing and stamping?
Aha, so good question. So there are different types of image transfers, right? We have stamping, which has actually been around for a lot longer than this, right? So the type of art form we're doing right now is actually called intaglio. It's an Italian word. What we're going to be doing, or what stamping is more what they call a relief. So the difference is, with wood carvings or any type of stamping, when you carve out your image, you're carving the deep areas. The point of the deep area is to prevent ink from being on those areas. When you put ink on the top, you cover those areas that are now above where you carved. And when you stamp it, now that image is what is transferred. So the good thing about that is it doesn't take a lot of pressure to transfer that image. Sometimes you can put a little extra pressure if you want, but for the most part, once you put it on there, there's your stamp. You re-ink it and you do it again. Same thing over and over. There's some problems with wood carvings. Ink and wood don't like each other because ink eventually seeps into the pores and softens the wood, so now your image begins to blur, etc., etc. What we're doing is the opposite. The areas that we're carving are the places where the ink will go. So the reason we have to use a press is we have to put enough pressure on our blankets and our paper to push the paper down into the hole or into the crevice where the ink resides. That takes about between 400 to 500 psi, pounds per square inch. So there's a lot of things you have to do. First of all, you need a press. Second of all, you have to actually moisten your paper because you don't want your paper to rip. So we're going to take our paper, we're actually going to drop it into a little bit of water for about 10 to 15 seconds, let it get just damp. We'll dry off the excess water, and that's when we'll be ready to print.
Kind of a positive, negative sort of thing with the relationship between carving and.
Exactly. So, any other questions?
I guess sort of related. I know for woodblock printing, it was seen as like a trade that's separate from the artist. So like the artist would often draw on the block and then hand it off to a craftsperson to carve. What about intaglio? Is the similar, or was the artist?
The artist was the person.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a trade. Most, especially in the beginning, most artists that did intaglio or later things where we got into lithography and that kind of stuff later in period, they were actually jewelers or armorers prior to being this. They had already been accomplished artists in making acid
Metal.
etching or some type of metal work, whether it would be jewelry or armor, and then they fell into this. So the level of skill that it took definitely required an artist, and the artist at that point making that image made it for a commission, potentially, most likely for a commission, but they also made it for art. And then most of them, not all, would actually sign their artwork as well. The good thing about plates is you can get a lot of prints out of them. The reason Daniel Hopfer started with steel is because that's what he knew. He'd been working with steel acid, using nitric acid to make all his pretty little things, which he was amazing. And then he tried it on steel plates and then came up with this idea of, well, if I put ink on it like they're doing over here, I can, oh, check this out. And he became, ooh. Now he only used steel for a little while, only about between 15 and 20 years, because there were some problems with steel. It's really strong, gives really good pictures, it lasts a long time. It rusts. And even if you oil it and protect it and put it on the shelf and keep it protected, when you take it off the shelf, now you have to clean it. You have to make sure all the oil is off, and if any oil is on it, you're going to mess up your prints. And back then, ink and paper were expensive. So one mess up print was money. I can mess up 50 prints and I'm like, oh no, I have to go buy another book of paper. Oh no, that's $8.99, let's go. You know, back then it was, oh no, I burned a piece of paper. That piece of paper was $99.99, you know. So they went, so eventually they eventually went to copper. Now there was a trade-off for that. Steel plates, you can print hundreds of prints before the plate begins to deform and your image begins to mess up. Copper, you only get between 20 and 50. So
All the pressure constantly put on.
correct. I'm putting between 400 to 500 pounds on that pressure. Either the plate begins to bend, which I have not experienced, but what does happen is the lines begin to smush down a little bit, so it doesn't start printing as well as it was in the beginning.
It becomes a copy of a copy of a copy.
Exactly. And then trying to make another one, that takes, you know, let's see, this one here took me 2.5 weeks. Every night, 4 to 5 hours a night to get this one done. Granted, I'm in nowhere at that kind of caliber, but still, it's not something you do overnight. This one probably took me about 3 to 4 weeks, only because it was the first one I did. It's the first copper one I ever did. This one's been 3 months now, but I'm not doing it every night. So the acid ones are a lot easier. Actually, I actually really like working with steel and doing the salt etching. You get a different type of print. Your lines come up differently. They come up softer than they do with your actual hand carvings. So if you're looking for a different look, you can do that. And the thing with it is, it's a lot easier to draw your picture because it's literally like drawing on a piece of paper. You've done it. It's really easy to remove the ground from the piece of metal. It takes very little pressure. Whereas you're going to find out, if you didn't already know, you got to put some pressure on that thing to actually mark it enough to where ink is consistent. All right, so I'm going to hand off some tools. I know I have more in here.
You draw the design with a pencil
Yep,
first?
you can use a pencil. I have a pencil if you need it.
What do you use to transfer the design on yours?
Good question. So traditionally, and in period, pictures were transferred to the plate. So the picture would be designed by the artist on a piece of paper or on whatever medium that they would normally use. Doing some research too, they had apprentices to do that kind of stuff too for them, right? They would make their picture and they're like, all right, fine, here, transfer this to the plate for me. I can't speak for them specifically, but it makes sense that if I'm the master and I have 5 apprentices, all right, so you, and you, here, transfer this. So, however, I'm sure the first couple times they did it for themselves. But what they actually did back then is they took a piece of paper with carbon. Yeah. So no, they need graphite.
Okay.
So they use actually charcoal from fire pits to make their own carbon copy paper. And they would actually place it on the plate, transfer their image correctly. Bear in mind, you must do it in reverse. How many times have I printed not in reverse?
I'm guessing a few.
A few!
That's why you wrote rhinoceros backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Rhinoceros is backwards. This is funny because this plate here is an Egyptian stela. It's actually from the Temple of Mereri. This is one of my classes I teach, how to read this. And when I did it, I was like, oh no, this is so cool. When I printed it, I'm like, it's backwards. However, with Egyptian, it's okay for it to be backwards. Because you can read Egyptian left to right or right to left. It's okay. The picture itself tells you how to read it. So if you didn't know, you look at where the person's facing. Animals or people. Wherever they're facing, you read it towards their face.
Okay, well that's cool.
So the fact that I printed it backwards ended up being a non-player because it was safe. But it was still wrong.
The lettering on the Tower of Dunor for the Champions Gift.
Yeah, I did it twice. The lettering for the Tower of Dunor I said I made for the Champions Gift, I wrote it incorrect twice. And it's usually the first letter you're like, oh no, it's too late. You've already made scratches on the plate, so that plate is now incorrect. So, also if you're ever interested, there's actually a video online. Rembrandt is one of the master printmakers as well. He's a little more late for the SCA time period, but there's a Rembrandt museum in Amsterdam where they still do his prints through his process with the equipment that he used. It's actually in his house. It's in the attic of his house. It's a museum. So there's actually paid artists that come in and they teach classes. They do the whole 9 yards. It's freaking really cool.
All right, field trip, let's go.
I'd love to go there one day. That would just be so cool, just to see how they did it. There's a BBC video where one of the reporters went there for a 30-minute thing. It's really cool. Yeah. So some of the other things we have to consider with this, type of paper you use. If your paper's too thick, it changes how your printer works. If it's too thin, it changes how your paper works. Here's a pencil if you need one. So how much water you use affects it. What type of ink you use affects it. For our class, we're going to use a water-based ink. I do that on purpose so that it washes out of your clothes. Obviously, back in the day, they didn't have water-based paints. It was all oil-based, so it stuck to everything. The consistency of the ink matters as well. I've actually had the ink at one point, it was sitting in my garage. It got to be 100 degrees outside on several days. I went out to make a print, and it poured out like liquid. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I went and printed, and I'm like, this is not printing like it's supposed to. Why is this not printing? Why am I having such a hard time? So I was like, I wonder if it's the consistency of the ink, because I'd already printed this plate previously. So I'm like, it should print fine. So I put it in the fridge. Let it sit for a day or so in the fridge. Took it outside, did it again, and it printed beautifully. So consistency of the ink. And that's the one thing I will say about printmaking. Printmaking is finicky. So if you don't get it the first time, change something. Something on your press, on your paper, something's just not right. I've had it to where I took too much ink off the plate and didn't realize I did. We're gonna actually add ink. We're gonna press it down into the crevices, and then we're gonna scrape the ink off. And I've tried different things on how to scrape it off. And for the most part, they just used whatever they had laying around. Modern artists will use like mat board from picture frames, because it's really easy to work with, and it's just cardboard, and you can throw it away. I have some plastic scrapers. I even tried rubber squeegees. Rubber squeegee works great, except it takes off more ink than I want it to. So I stopped using it. So I have a new scraper I'm going to try today. I normally use just a normal plastic spatula. I have a new one I'm going to try today. It's got a little bit of a rubber. We'll see how this works. It may or may not work good. We'll see. Also, if you press too hard, you will pull out more ink than you think. So it all comes down to how much pressure do you put on things. Once we scrape the ink off, and we'll talk about this process as we go, once we scrape off the ink, now we have to remove the rest of the ink. And we'll use that, they would have done with rags or other things they had laying around the house, spare stuff, trash pieces. We're going to use newsprint paper, because newsprint paper absorbs a lot of ink. So we're going to use that to absorb it. Makes it really nice, fills up really fast. So you have to keep moving, using different parts of the paper until you get off exactly what you think you got off. And your plate should actually look clean. Your lines should just look a little black, hopefully, because that's the color ink we're using. So, but if you scrape too much with your newsprint, you will also pull ink out of the lines. So it's all a matter of process and doing it consistently over time. Because in theory, if we were talking about in period, we're looking at printing this thing multiple times. We don't just make a plate to print once. Chances are we've been commissioned for a book or something along those lines, so we're going to be printing this 10 to 20 to 30 times so we could sell them to a booksmith who's going to do whatever with it. The other thing I learned as well, words on copper don't go well. My wife challenged me, and I had somebody else challenge me to make a scroll on a copper plate. So the beginnings of this was this little plate that I was talking about, this champion plate. It's like, I want to do words on that. And I had a hard time making the words the shape that I wanted them to be. Now, artwork is artwork. I get it. So if you make a mistake, you go with your mistake and you make it into art. But what if you're trying to write something? So there's only so much you can do when you vary your words. Either by making it look like art, trying to maintain a certain font, or just making it readable and small enough to where you can put it on a plate, print it, and still be able to read it. What I found out, and made total sense, is the areas, if you want to make something like a scroll, you make all the great designs and everything, the place where you want the words to be, you leave blank. Polish it, make sure it comes up clean, and then let the illuminators or the scribes put the words in for you. It's much more consistent, much more readable, and it's much easier for the plates. So I found some other work, and actually I saw an artist, an SCA artist out in Albuquerque, who had posted a really beautiful plate they had done. Took them an entire year, over 500 hours to actually make. And I was like, wait, you didn't put any text? Oh wait, but your print has text. Oh, now 2 and 2 go together, and now this makes sense. That makes total more sense, because it does allow an illuminator to do a lot more with that. And though it's not quote unquote consistent, it would be normal, you would think, because they're making books anyway, right? They're writing books out anyway. The whole point of printmaking is not to save them from writing, it's to actually be able to translate images and stuff onto the paper.
Why is text so difficult? I mean, is it just because of the rounded shape?
It really comes down to the rounding, the shape, especially if you're gonna do something like we're doing. Technically what we're doing is called dry point. We're just taking a dry point of a piece of metal and we're carving it into the copper. You can also call it, if you go a little deeper, you can say it's etching, because you are etching. You can also use that at the beginning into engraving, to where you actually take a burr-in, which is another tool. It's kind of like a V shape. They actually have multiple different shapes, but the most generic one is kind of a V shape to a point, to where you can just follow the line. You can carve out deeper lines. So that's what you could do with that. A lot of people start with the dry point and then go right into using that as the pattern to make carvings. There's actually a professor out in Rhode Island who actually has a good video online on how to do that. He shows you the period methods they used to actually carve copper and then print from there. Real beautiful work. So, any other questions? I know I've been talking a lot. I'd like to get us to the hands-on before we get too far. So, I just want to show you a couple of examples real quick before we put this. This is one of the best ones I have. So this was a picture from one of the fencing manuals from the 1200s. So I just recreated it. But I want you to look at the plates and tell me what's different about them.
More roundedness to this one, more smoothness.
Okay, it's more smooth.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
This looks more polished.
More polished. That's exactly it, actually. So this was back when I was learning.
And they're mirrored image.
One I did the right way, the other one I didn't. Good eye. So the point about that one really is the polishing. So when I first started doing this several years ago, I started doing the plate making, and then I decided, oh, what can I do with plate making? Oh, I can make prints. I didn't polish anything. I didn't know I had to polish it. So I just started printing things, and there's a difference in the printing when you don't polish it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the rust comes through.
Right? Any pores that the metal naturally has will hold ink.
Yeah.
So what I did is I took sandpaper and sanded it 800, 1000 to 2000 grit, which they would have done in period as well. They didn't obviously have grits. They had their own sanding utensils and stuff. But same idea. They would sand it to a high polish to where it was shiny. So now, before I do any work on a piece of metal, save these little rounds, I will usually go through and sand it. I have actually gone up to 10,000 grit just to see
What it does.
what the difference is. Personally, I like going to about 5,000 grit. That's where I think I get less background image. We're less gray on the paper. You'll see that all these prints have a little gray where you can see the plate was. The higher you go, you notice on this one, there's not nearly as much gray.
Yeah.
This one I think I went to 4,000 grit. So the higher and higher you go, the better image you'll get, image quality. You can also put some type of polish on it, like Brasso or those kind of things to kind of help with it. I don't like putting those on there just because I think I'm afraid in my head it'll interact with the ink. I have a polish on there. It's still some type of chemical that's on there, so I prefer just to use sandpaper, get it to where I think I'm happy with it, and then go from there.
Did they typically stick with black and white, or did they ever experiment with color?
So inks were expensive. It wasn't until later period where they started getting into colors. Pretty much in the beginnings they stuck with black because it was the most prevalent and easily and probably the most accessible for them. I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Oak ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the inks actually they made, they would actually use ash and other gypsum oils and stuff to make their own inks. The artists may not make it, but that's kind of how they made it for them. The ash gave it the black tinge. So it was just a lot easier than like I said, colors did come later when they get into lithography and a couple of the other ones, meso tinting and those kind of things. But they're later period where the colors became kind of a thing. And it's really hard to do multiple colors. I thought about trying it, but I'm like, you have to get ink on one spot and not on the other spot, and because you can't print more than once of the same image.
But you went on ombre.
Yeah, exactly. Ombre, there you go. So
was all the ink the same, or did, like you mentioned that they used was there one set formula that they used for the ink, or?
So like I said, inking and inks, and even when we get into it, I was talking about how we did how I did acid etching. Artists were very, very stingy with their knowledge. So any inking they would have done, they would not have shared their knowledge with anybody except their apprentice. And even then, they would do it sparingly. Because if they shared how they made their ink with their fellow artist in the next town, he could steal the recipe and now he was out of business. I found that when I was actually trying to make my own ground, when I was doing the acid etching, I actually said, all right, let's make my own ground. So I started with beeswax, and sweet. Yep, they did use beeswax in period. All right, okay, I had a problem. It stuck too well to the metal. So when I tried to carve it off, my etchings weren't clean because there would be beeswax on parts that I didn't intend it to be. So then I was like, okay, now what? So let's add some wax. So I added some paraffin. Easiest thing for modern day, but they would use candle wax or something like that. Worked better, it stiffened it, but it still didn't do what I wanted. So then I added another thing, rosin. So a period thing as well. The problem came is I did get it to work. I was happy, I could get my lines, everything went great. But what is the actual recipe? How much to how much to how much? So I experimented for probably 2 or 3 months until I kind of got one what I was happy with. And I was like, cool, I know how to do this. I'm gonna go buy it now. I know how they did it, and it's a long process, but I'm much happier with the one that I purchased. It's easier to work with. And I do have it all documented. I have photos and everything. This is how I did it. I know how they did it. I have some research that says, yes, they use beeswax. Yes, they use wax. Yes, they use rosin. Yes, those things were part of the thing, but everyone had their own, and they didn't share it, and there's nothing written down, and so good luck in trying to figure it out. But I did go through the process. Now I just purchased a ground from an artist supplier. It's already blackened, it's already designed, and it works really well, as some of my former students have seen.
I tried to do that with olive oil.
Oh,
I
really?
pressed my own olive oil.
Not worth it.
It was a lot of work. At first I had to pit all the olives because I don't have a press that was good enough. But they take these huge stone mortars essentially, but they're
Okay,
huge.
and just,
And they run a bigger stone and it crushes everything.
oh.
I don't have that, so I pitted all the olives, put them in a little juice presser, and I don't think I strained it enough when I,
Interesting.
so it began to mold before it separates. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna do that again.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I've pitted cherries, even with the chip pig, and it's such so hard work.
Oh, with the olives, I did it by hand.
Yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. I had a machine to do it with because doing it by hand was a pain, and that was still a pain.
5 pounds of olives.
Oh my gosh.
To try and get enough juice. Anyway.
All right.
Do you have another all, or is that the only one?
I I have another one, you can try it, if it's not, if it doesn't work well enough, we can,
Ryan,
you wanna try one?
maybe not. It will probably look like absolutely not what it's supposed to look like, but.
It doesn't have to look like anything, it can look like a smiley face, quite honestly.
I've done a smiley face.
Like I said, these are actually just demo tools. When I'm doing my real work, I use my awl, but here's some other tools. They're finer
Those
tips.
are more beginner friendly.
Yeah, they're very beginner friendly, and therefore you're not trying to get a really deep etch. So while you guys are actually continuing, I'll just kind of talk about the process as because there's some preparatory things we have to do. So I do have a press that we have here. It's called a mini press. Yeah, I bought it off Amazon because I don't have a huge space dedicated in my garage to put a beautiful press. They also run about $15,000. So even tabletop ones run about $2,000. So my brain has a hard time justifying if I'm not going to use it enough. If I used it every day, that would be different. So you have to have a press. Setting the press up is a little bit of a endeavor because in order to preserve your press, you have to release all the tension off of it while it's not being used. So that means every time you get ready to print, you have to reset everything. And physics is physics. You think you know exactly how you set it up last time, you try it the second time, and maybe it prints right, maybe it doesn't. So always expect the first couple prints from your press are probably going to be throwaway prints. So at least that's been my experience. Sometimes I've got it right off the bat. I've got it, whoop, first one came out perfect. I'm like, sweet, it happens. So for this particular press, I think I have it set, but it also comes to how thick the metal is because the pressure is adjusted on how thick the metal is. It's also how many blankets. Let's talk about the press real quick. The press has a couple different parts. It uses 2 rollers, and you're going to roll a piece of metal through the rollers. So the rollers, the piece of metal is called the bed, and that's going to be what passes through. That's also what your plate lays on, and all your blankets. Blankets. So most presses do anything from 2 to 3 blankets, sometimes up to 5. But for the most part, we're just going to use, in this case, we're only using 2, mainly because this press is small enough that you don't need as many blankets. Blankets do specific things. So the top blanket is used to protect the roller from the pressure, allows it to give a little bit of cushion. The second blanket is a cushion, which protects everything else. And then the bottom blanket is called your pusher, and that's actually what is pushing the ink or the paper down into the ink. So they all have a separate purpose. In this particular case, we only have an upper and a lower. So we have a pusher blanket and a cushion blanket, and that's all we're using just because it's small. Then from there, we'll put a piece of newsprint paper on top of that. That is to protect my blanket from ink. So even though I'm gonna have a piece of paper over top of my plate, sometimes ink bleeds out, especially if you're doing multiple prints. And then if you lay your blanket down inadvertently, it gets ink on it, and now your blanket is damaged, and it can actually put ink on other pieces of paper where you don't want it to be. So then you have to go wash it, and that's a whole process. So little piece of paper helps protect that. In the past, I have put a piece of newsprint down on the metal plate as well, the bed itself. It's not required, but it does protect your bottom plate from getting ink on it. Once again, placing ink in places you don't want. What's nice about that is when that gets too much ink on it, I can just stamp that piece of paper out and put another piece under, and now I have a clean bed all over again. So that's probably what I'll do again here. Adjusting your plate or adjusting your press is a little bit of a process. So you have 2 rollers here. They're just 2 screws. They're on screw mounts, and you actually, in order to set the press, is pretty simple. So the first thing we're going to do, actually I'm going to run the other way so you guys can see I'm not blocking your view. So right now I actually haven't set the pressure, but I'm going to release it. Oh no. So one thing about your rollers, always move one with the other. You don't want your roller going up cockeyed. You will actually damage your roller. So you can take it all the way up until they stop. So now the roller's at its maximum position. This allows me to take the plates in and out, do whatever I need to do. Once you set your press though, you don't want to do this. Once you get your pressure set, you want to leave it. So all you do is you place your bed in here with the blankets. We're also going to put one more piece of newsprint on here just to protect the bed. I've just been picking up newsprint.
I was wondering where you getting newsprint these days.
Yeah, so newsprint you can find them at an artist store.
Okay.
I found this one at one of the bigger name outlets. So Michael's, Hobby Lobby, any one of those. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Understanding, since this is the bottom piece, I'm not really worried about the paper being perfect, as in cuts. But also keep in mind, if this is an upper piece, if you don't do it right, you could actually affect your image. You want your paper to fit inside of this perfectly. You don't want it to go outside of this, because this line with 400 pounds of
Oh,
pressure,
yeah.
you will get an impression on your paper. So understand that what I usually do is I will actually take the bed out, put it on here, and I will cut my paper to fit the bed, just to be safe. This particular case I'm not going to, because we'll be okay for what we're doing. So once I've got my blanket and my bed in here, now all we're gonna do is we're gonna start putting these down. Now, when you go down, you're gonna feel it go down and down and down and down and down, and then all of a sudden, there it is. They'll all of a sudden like, woo, spin really fast. And that means you're laying on top of your blanket. That's good. Both sides are laying on my blanket. Now is when I want to actually start putting pressure on it. We're gonna try 2 full spins. We'll see if that's enough pressure to actually give us a good print. That's where I start from most of the time. On the side of your press, there actually is rulers. This particular press, because it's a fairly inexpensive press, I don't really think that the rulers are very accurate. So I just count my turns, and if I need to go more, I do another half turn or whatever. So it just comes down to feel. When you start printing, you're gonna see, hey, it's not printing right. If you know your ink's right, you know your paper's right, first thing is check your press. So just adjust your pressure. And there are times I've had to crank it down to like 2.5 or sometimes even 3 full turns. Understand, the more pressure you put on your press, it's more pressure on your paper, but it's also more pressure on the press, meaning the rollers that make these rollers roll, the blankets, the physics of the thing. I usually, sometimes I'll get it to where my blankets stick, because the upper roller doesn't move, just because it's an inexpensive press. So you do have to take care of your press. Oil it if you can. The problem with these mini presses, which are on Amazon, there's not a lot of care options. You know, they're kind of sealed everywhere, and you're like, no, I need to put some oil in it. Nope, it doesn't let you put oil in it. So it's just something you got to work through. If I had an actual art studio that was close, I would probably go there, because they would have a well-maintained press that I could actually do some really, really cool prints. But this works. It does a very good job for what it is. As you can see, these are all these prints that I have up here have come from this press. So, all right, so the first thing we've done now, we've now prepared our press. Now that we've prepared our press, now, what do we want to do? What do we want to print? So, do we want to do a copper plate, or do we want to do a metal plate? So, you know what, let's just go, we're going to do the Egyptian plate. Metal plate. Now, the metal plate is thicker than my copper plate. I believe this is 16 gauge or 18 gauge. I don't remember off the top of my head. And I know this is 16 gauge steel. That is what they actually used in period, was a 16 gauge equivalent. It's thick on purpose, because it's got to go through a lot of times. So, you notice I'm putting my fingers all over this? That's not good. All right, human oils are not good.
They're not your friend.
And you know what? I didn't bring. That's funny. Did not bring a roll of paper towels.
Would you like me to go get you some?
No, I can use a, I have a cloth, but thank you though. So I'll use one of my,
Even if your classroom is sink, most of the classrooms
I
are
know.
sinks.
we almost did this outside, because I was like, I don't wanna get ink on the classroom. But, you'll also notice I have, my press is mounted to a piece of wood,
Mm.
and then I have C-clamps onto the table. So that was so I could actually make it portable. That table, and any table like that, really actually is not the right table for doing that, because you're gonna see as we try to use
Oh,
this, it's gonna wiggle and lift up and try to, so,
Yeah.
but it'll work. All right, so now we've chosen our plate. We think it's about the right thing, so we're gonna do a couple things now. You okay?
Yeah.
Oh, so, you see how hard, tired makes your hand? Yeah.
Yeah.
This thing, there's a reason this takes out. You get through about 30 minutes and your hand is like, oh yes, oh. You feel my pain.
Yes.
Hurt for your artwork, hurt for your art.
Beauty is pain.
So, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna prepare our ink. Now that we have prepared, we picked our plate out, we're not gonna prepare our ink, because we can't do anything until the ink is ready. And I say it that way because you would think, oh, just put ink on the plate. Actually, no, you can't just put ink on the plate. The ink has been sitting in a canister for a certain length of time, so the ink has become stiff and cold. Even if it's warm outside, it's still stiff. So we have to actually get the ink in a proper viscosity for it to be actually usable in this. Now, we're gonna find out real quick, because this has been sitting outside, right? We'll see if the ink has gotten too soft. Okay, it actually is a little soft. So this ink should be like glue. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
see how it's moving around?
Paint-like.
Yeah, it's very paint-like.
Okay.
So it should be more like paste.
Okay.
So we're gonna see how it prints. Okay, it may print fine, it may not. Obviously, with it being this loose, I probably don't need to do a lot of working with it. So when I say working with it, this is what I mean. So normally we'll take our ink, we'll put it onto our,
You know, like knead it.
and we'll knead it, exactly. We're trying to loosen up the ink.
Kind
So
of
one-
like you do with polymer clay.
Yeah, exactly, you wanna make it malleable, right?
Yeah.
Same idea. Like I said, this is probably already where it needs to be. It might even be a little too soft. I didn't think about trying to put in a fridge around here, but I don't know if we had one anyway, so. But we'll see how it works. But basically with this, you'll see it when you put it out there, usually when it's kind of paste-like. As soon as you start working it, you'll see its sheen changes just a little bit, gets a little more shiny, it just seems to move a little easier. So we're gonna just try it from where it is. So now that we've got our ink, we think worked. Now we're gonna add it to the plate. Apron, gloves, a necessity. Even if you don't care about ink getting on your hands, you will, because now you have to pick up a piece of paper. And you don't want ink on your paper with fingerprints. So you wanna protect your artwork. Could you do me a favor?
Yes.
Could you pour that water in here? Thank you. So, putting ink on here. You notice I used a metal scraper to pull the ink out and to actually, and I'm sorry we didn't get to printing before you left here.
That's all right. I want to come back and see the results.
Please do. Notice I used a metal scraper on the tempered glass. It works better to work the ink than a plastic one does. So, but you don't want to use a metal one to put your ink onto your plate, because that will scratch your plate and you'll get lines you don't want.
Connie, how many?
That's plenty. That's plenty. Thank you so much.
Do you need more water?
Thank you. So, some plates are a little easier than others because I have like my fencing one. I only have to cover the areas where the lines are. I actually picked one of the harder ones because this has lines that go all the way up to the edge. So we have to cover the whole thing in ink. Now there's another thing on this plate which I didn't cover yet. Something that we do to help the ink and also protect the paper. On these steel ones and on the copper, you'll notice that the edge has been beveled. So I've taken a file along the edge to get about a 45-degree bend. The whole point to do that is to help it, since I'm putting so much pressure onto the plate. If I don't actually do that, I have a risk of actually cutting the paper instead of embossing the paper, and you'll see what I mean when I say I'm embossing it. But, so all we're gonna do right now is basically cover our plate in ink. Once we have it covered, yay, we're all happy. No, we're not. So the next thing we have is we have one of these here. A lot of them used leather tools to actually push it down in there, a damper or something like that. This is just a piece of tarlatan that I've wound together. I wrapped it up in some tape, and now I'm going to use that to actually push the ink into the lines. I want to get as much down into the lines just to make sure, yes, I know I have ink in there, because now we're going to go scrape off all the excess ink. The way we scrape it is simply take a scraper, and we'll see how this one works. It worked pretty well.
Anything of the excess can just go back on the.
Yeah, the excess I just put back onto the board.
Can you reuse it?
Yep. I will use the scraper to bring it all back together and try to reuse as much as possible. Especially if you think about how they did it back in period where ink was so expensive, they would want to save as much as possible. Because, like I said, the more they use, the more it costs them. So, this actually works. I actually really like the way this is working. The plastic scraper works well, but plastic, you see little micro lines when you're doing it just because it's not perfectly straight. Over time, it just wears out. So that worked really well. But you notice I'm not even close to being done, right? I still have ink on my plate that is in the way. Obviously, that's not how I want it to print. So that is where newsprint paper comes in. So any scraps I had from cutting to fit my bed or whatever, I now go across my plate. Doing so in a round circular pattern helps get the most off, but don't put much pressure. Because if you put too much pressure, once again, you will take off ink that you would want to stay on there. But notice I filled up that piece of newsprint pretty quick because I have a lot of ink on here. So now I have to move my fingers and just keep doing the same process. Like I said, the reason we use newsprint is it has a high absorption rate for ink. That's why it's a newsprint. You actually start to see that the lines are starting to show. This is an acid etching, so the lines are pretty deep. So I'm actually really happy right now with the lines are keeping the ink. So that's a good thing. The copper etchings, because if you do them by hand, you won't be able to put as much pressure because you'll start pulling the ink out of the print or out of the plate. You also notice I'm laying this flat on here. I'm not like crunching or whatever. So you want to lay it as flat as possible because in theory, I don't want any of that newsprint to get down into the crevices. I want it to remain on top, on the upper layer. Now, even though we don't quote unquote see much ink on the upper layer, it's still going to give us the gray because this is not a highly polished piece. This was probably only polished about 800 grit, maybe even 400 grit because this is one of my first ones ever. But we'll see if we can get a print comparable to the one that we've already done. Over there, right there. Now, the other problem you have is I have ink all over my gloves, right? So you have choices. You can try to wash your gloves off. You can change your gloves out, but I've got ink on the bottom of my plate. So that ink's gonna go somewhere, which is why I said I put a piece of newsprint under my plate so that I don't get that ink onto my bed. So it just keeps it safe. Then I only get ink where I want it. Because I don't want it on the paper, I don't want it on my bed, don't want it on my blanket. I only want it on the paper where I expect it to be.
I hope it's deep enough.
Sweet, yeah. So basically now that I've done the circular one, that's just to get as many crevices as I can find. I tend to go with the grain in the middle as well at the end, just to, that's just my own thing. Take a look at it, you can see I think the ink is pretty much in all the lines. I see nice black lines, that's what I'm looking for. Right. I can also look at it and go, oh, I don't like that spot right there, I want to get a little bit more ink off that one spot or wherever, right? The last thing you're gonna do is your edges, you actually wanna clean them off as well, because if you don't, and it's probably gonna do it anyway, you will have a border. Now, speaking of that, in period, Rembrandt was known to do that on purpose. I know, once again, Rembrandt's a little out of period for us, but as an artist, he was known for actually having borders on his, because he liked the way it looked. It defined where his picture was. I actually kind of like it sometimes. I like it on the copper. I don't necessarily like it on the steel. The copper doesn't seem to be as broad as the steel.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have I carved this deep enough?
That was my question too.
So, the answer is, I don't know. Because,
We haven't tested it.
correct. So I have actually done a plate. Matter of fact, it was this champion plate that I just did. I carved it, and when I printed it, it would not print very well at all. And I'm like, I see ink in it. Why is it not printing? Found out the tip was dull. It was not going as deep as it normally would. So I went and redid the lines after I sharpened the awl, and poof, magic happened. It was able to print. So that is something, you get a feel for it. So take your thumb across your carving. Can you feel the lines? If you
Well,
can,
there are something there.
there's something there. Chances are, if you feel the lines, it'll probably print fine. Okay? Once again, if you just barely feel the lines, it might need a second carving. Now, what's the problem with second carvings? Do you think you're going to get the exact same carving when you do it again?
No.
Chances are you won't. That was one of my
I
problems.
slipped a few times already.
Exactly. Art. It's art. You can slip. There are no mistakes in art. So,
It's a design feature.
yep. So now, one thing I didn't show you that we have to do in our print press is we have to place it ready to receive a plate. So that basically means you're going to take it to its one side or the other. You can go both ways through the print, so it doesn't really, or through the press. It doesn't matter, but we're going to go ahead and put our plate in here. And I'm actually going to put another pair of gloves on again because I don't want to get. I took my gloves off so I could actually touch the press. I actually do tend to run my.
Through them.
Well, I go through a lot of gloves, but sometimes I'll just wash my hands with water because it's water-based soap. That way I don't have to keep going through 100 pairs of gloves and like 2 prints.
So we'll let you do the messy parts.
That's perfectly fine. I am happy to. Like I said, if anybody wants to, I'm sorry?
Mine's ready.
Okay.
Mine is
And
too.
you have your class to go to?
Yeah, so if we're able to do this
I
now,
will-
then I can duck out.
Okay, you want to try yours first?
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to work because
I
the
don't
press is set, you know.
We have to polish it first?
No, we could polish it if you wanted to. Yours just won't come out perfectly clean, right? I do have.
I'll take it home with me and polish it, and then my prints in the future will be.
Absolutely, I do have some 1000 grit sandpaper we could actually throw over it. There it is. Little blocks.
I'll work on mine while you're getting hers all set.
So I will give you the medium grit, which is 800. That's usually where I start, and then I'll give you the fine grit. I'm just going to start hers with the fine grit. Think about this. Yes, the metal side. Once you actually go, make sure you only go
One direction.
one direction, or I'm doing 2 directions with the same plane, right?
When one's up and down or side.
No
to side.
cross hatching is what you're saying.
Yeah, you don't want cross action because those scratches will appear.
Oh, yeah, it's scratching the heck out of it.
Yeah, it's scratching.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't either.
That one might not work.
No, unfortunately, we're actually, now that we've done it, we have to finish it.
That's fine. Not the end of the
I,
world. if
I never
can
tried
really-
these blocks before, so I was hoping they were blocked, so they'd be.
I think it's making my line go away.
Yeah, I think so.
So that is the one thing you do have to be careful with, sandpaper when you, that's why I always polish beforehand. It will make your lines get more shallow, because you're erasing part of the,
It's a good thing I went back over them then.
this will probably be okay. So even though it's scratches, believe it or not, this might be, it may end up being a little too shallow,
Okay.
just from me feeling it.
If so, I will recarve it another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
No issue there. This way we get to know.
This way
It's,
you get to-
so this whole thing is a learning process, right?
Yeah.
So the good thing about plating and inking is you do it once, you can always make changes and do it again. And then once you get it to where you like it, you leave it that way forever. And then you can just re-ink it and replate it, re-ink it and reprint it, re-ink it and reprint it.
That is very liquidy today.
Yeah, it's very liquidy today. So, yeah.
We could have put it in cooler.
Well, I didn't think it was hot enough to worry about. Because last time it happened, it was 110 degrees outside.
Yeah.
You live and you learn. And next time it'll be a different issue.
And there's a reason you say art is art, right? It's not science.
That's part of the fun of it. Ooh, that's pretty. It's not even cleaned up yet and it's pretty.
I don't think it's gonna print consistent. So. If you want another round, you can have another round if you prefer. I have plenty of them. Because this is definitely gonna show ink in the scratches.
I'm only carving this last time.
Well, the thing about it is, even if these prints aren't great, you still understand the process. You know, it is a lot of work to get it just right. That's when, like I said, that's when I usually polish before I actually carve my image. I have polished afterwards, but usually that's because I'm trying to erase something. I use sandpaper to kind of try to erase a line.
But in a 2-hour class too, it's kind of hard to get.
Yeah.
it anyway.
So let's try real quick. We'll throw this on to see how it prints. I don't think I'm gonna be entirely happy with it, but
It is what it is.
you've been in my other class, so you know it
You
can
how
work.
it gets.
I have been in your other class, yes. We did not use my other blank to print with. Probably just as well.
We do
Yours
have
was the
additional
etching
rounds
class, right?
if we-
Yep.
So here's the paper. Just one thing to understand about the paper. This paper is specifically called printmaking paper. This one's a little thicker than I really like. It's 300 GSM, which is grains per square meter. The thicker you go, more it changes the way the paper, the press works. Also, how wet you need to make it to actually absorb. I've tried drawing paper at 120. I've tried watercolor paper at 300 and 320, and different papers absorb the ink differently. So it's just a matter of finding the one that you like. I used drawing paper for the longest time. The other ink paper I have, it's actually 280 GSM, and I think that's actually about the right number, because I think the 300, I have other 300. Now, once you put this in the water, Basically all I did is just kind of toss it around the water, flip it over a couple times. You want to drain the excess water off of it, have a towel next to it, and we're just going to get any excess water, because you don't want it to be sopping wet, you just want it to be damp, just softened. So, a lot of times with your prints as well, you can actually, one reason people don't put newsprint on the bottom is you can actually put markers on there. This is where you lay your plate, this is where you lay your paper all the time. Consistency, once again, right? So, you've got the plate, we've got the round down, we'll put the newsprint and the 2 blankets over top, and we will run this through the press. Let's see how it goes. Now, when you have thicker pieces, you actually feel, I don't know if you're gonna feel this one, you'll feel the round or the plate go under the roller. Yeah, I didn't feel that, it's just really thin. So what I try to do when I run it through is I try not to go all the way to where the paper I can pull out. You also notice it is embossed a little. That means you got some pressure on it, right? The paper has gotten pressed. So is it enough? I don't know. So what I try to do is, like I said, I go where I can't pull the paper, it's still stuck, so I can lift it up and look.
So it stays in place.
Right. So it actually didn't print too badly. You can definitely see the scratching. So
Nice.
I'm not happy with that sandpaper. That was a brand new thing I wanted to try. I'm not happy with it at all.
Live and
But
learn.
I'm sorry?
Live and learn.
Yeah. And once again, it's all a learning process, right? But you can see her lines stayed. They're there. I would probably go a little deeper with these just to give you a little more prominence. And then I would probably actually grab, like, I'd probably go, because that's probably not, it said it was 1,000 grit, but I don't believe it. So I would probably take it, my other sanding blocks and my sanding paper, and I'd take it up to like 2,000 or 3,000 grit. So you don't see the shading from the lines.
And I could polish it and then go back in and deepen the.
Yes, absolutely. So you could go deep in the lines. It would keep like if all you did was deepen the lines, you'd get better lines. You just would still have a little bit of the scratching, right? If we got 2,000 grit, we could get rid of a lot of the scratching, which I do have. I don't know if I have it with me today, but you can clean that up. But this would be a quasi-successful print, right? So we tested that the pressure, I might put a little more pressure on it just to see if it helps. But chances are, just because I know what we're doing right now, it's probably not a deep enough engraving. So,
But considering
That's a
that was
first
my
try.
first try,
And
I'm
that's
not
just
mad
it.
at it at all.
well, exactly. So you should never be mad at your first try, right? Because first of all, we're just trying to, these rounds are not meant for printmaking, right? They're meant as copper rounds.
This is a
And
quick project. As
It was a
opposed
quick
to-
project to do here in a remote location, right? So now, period-wise, they would take these papers and hang them to allow them to dry for about a couple hours. They would actually hang them on they could do on little dowels and just let them hang down. Sometimes they would do it like this. Putting books on top of them, they didn't do a lot until later, because once you print, 100 of these or even just 20 of these, putting, enough things, stacking books on top of them becomes problematic, right? So they had their own, there's pictures in period where you see them, print shops just have things hanging all over the walls. So that's your print.
You have a rack at home that you.
I have a rack that I take with me when I go to some events that I can hang stuff on. But because I only do
Yes.
3 or 4 prints, I tend to put them between books and flatten them out or lay them
That
flat.
actually turned out
So good.
really great.
No, like I said, you can see what it is, right?
For a first try, yeah, that's amazing.
That's just it.
I did so good designing my badge and shield.
Almost did a.
It's recognizable even without the colors. That makes me so happy.
So I'm gonna clean off your
This is fabulous.
plate if you want to take it with you. You can
Yes, please.
Yep.
And you can take an additional
So,
one if you like.
What's nice about these is like I said, there's a lot of ink all over it, right? All you have to do is dip it in some water, and it'll come right off and clean right off. Paper towel, whatever.
Water soluble.
Water soluble. I am going to try some ink ones because I want to see the difference between the water soluble and the inking one. But the water is better when I'm teaching in class because Because sometimes I have kids, and sometimes in locations where if I get it messed up, I don't wanna have to clean that up.
I actually taught a soap making class where I made soap
Mhm.
in a classroom, much like this. No sink, no, I just needed the electricity.
Yeah.
I brought in buckets of water.
Was it modern soap
Yeah.
or old soap? Or old
Cold
soap?
press.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do that now.
Oh, nice.
So the other thing I didn't show you guys as well, period, they would actually, when they, after they cleaned off their plate to ink it, they would actually take their hands and rub it across the upper layers because your hands actually pull off more ink than paper does or rags do. Sometimes they put some talc or equivalent chalk on their hands to help keep it dry, and they would just, and then they're like, okay, cool. But that was period. I don't do it here most of the time, just because I'm trying to keep all the ink off my hands. There you go. Should not have too much ink on it. Can't say you won't get any on you. Wanna try yours?
So, next if you want.
Go for it.
Okay, so here, I'll just get up and get closer.
Try them both if you do it.
So, like we said, now, all that ink that I scraped off, I'm gonna now just transfer back to the center of the,
Mine will somewhat resemble this, cause, mine will not real straight.
that's fine. And, the scratches didn't help. Oh, yours, you didn't polish yours. So we'll do the same thing with yours. We're just gonna, so actually, so yours is a great example. See, hers doesn't go to the edge. So I would actually wouldn't have to ink the entire, if this was a 11 by, if this was like, in period, their plates are usually about 17 inches, sometimes up to 23 inches. So the biggest I go is 8 by 10, but, so but in theory, if this was bigger, I would only have to put ink where your ink is. I wouldn't put it anywhere else. Why waste the extra effort, right? So
It's a 33, I'm not gonna.
it's on there, and kind of mash it down just to make sure we get ink everywhere we want to. Take our scraper.
Is our household badge.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Because it's house muddy foot clan of the ogres.
Nice.
So we got
A sign.
the majority of the ink off.
Nice.
I like that.
A piece here and try to get.
When we did the acid etching class, I did my actual device, so I figured doing my badge for this.
Trying to
class
get it in the
would be
light.
perfect.
I don't have my glasses on. I should have left my glasses on.
Yeah, the soap though.
Oh, they're right there. Did you grab them and throw them on my face?
This is why you have your wife come to your class.
Verity members.
Thank you so much.
Sorry at the time. She actually taught the
Perfect.
class.
So
She sends me the word now. She made,
Yes,
she brought me to a place.
I don't see a lot of ink in the lines, so
notepad.
I pushed a little too hard.
Shop.
So then we're just gonna re-ink it.
So if you're ever in town to the Enchanted Cottage, that's where I
Use this scraper this time. You see the plastic scraper doesn't scrape as well as the other one.
I figured this would be much easier to carve than my goose. I also have a badge
I'll
that
try to
is
make
a
sure we do it
goose
lighter this time.
maintaining a spindle.
So we don't pull that out.
Okay. I have,
Out of the
3
box.
rats.
And this is where I said printing is very
Over.
finicky.
That drops.
So
Nice.
I can't tell you
My
how much
actual
pressure to put
device.
on there. It's-
My
you have to
device is 3 stars in
Figure it
chief
out, right?
and a pomegranate.
Because it comes down to how deep did you engrave, how deep did you do this?
Stars
how-
are blue, borders
So I'm
blue,
being very
field is
light-handed,
argent. and
hopefully. Now on the edges, I don't have to be light-handed because I'm
As-
not.
as is
doing
proper.
Thing, but we'll just do that's a little bit of,
But it is also recognizable in black and white, which is just,
so.
that just means.
There's
I did a
actually
good
ink
job
in there, we'll
designing
see how
my-
much and how well it prints.
I consider that to be part of the thing.
Good job, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Alright, so we'll go with.
go back
that.
over at home.
We're gonna put that all, no, actually, it's on the same spot.
So we can also.
Try to prevent ink from getting on the paper.
That's awesome,
Boom.
because I would absolutely make one.
Do something.
I ordered
That one is actually, that's actually one that I made based on a thistle by Daniel Hopper. I took one of his
Nice.
mosaics that he had done, or not a mosaic, but a mural that he had done for a chapel, and I took that and made my own
Oh,
thing out of it. So that was like my third or fourth etching, I think.
well,
Just
it
learning.
says 3, I'm assuming that's.
So 3, so actually, that's actually a very good question. So the reason the number 3 is on there is that is my third print that I did from the plate.
Oh, okay, so you can keep track as
Correct.
it degrades.
So
You
you,
can figure out.
normally, you would take your print, you put your name on it, and you'll put the date, and you'll put number 3, number 4, number 5, et cetera, as you print things, so that you can actually say, this is a third one from this plate on this day.
Okay.
So the next day, I would restart my numbers again with a different date.
Whoops.
Here we go.
There's a chair there.
There is a chair.
And I'm dropping things now.
I have no idea.
So like I said, just put in the water, you want clean water as best as possible, you wanna try to get as little ink, this has a little ink on it. So if I was doing this, I would make sure that's my back side, not my front side. So that way, the ink is not showing. Now, most of mine I'll frame, so you have places to hide it. Or you can also cut it to fit a frame. But you wanna try to get as little ink, especially on the area you're printing, right? If you get on the edge of the paper, that's one thing, or where you're printing. See, I see ink here, and that will come up on the paper. So, a little cheap. This actually does work, and it doesn't change the image.
It's like using the whiteout.
Yeah, exactly. So, once again, we put our plate on, we put our paper on over it, lay our blankets down, and now we'll run it through the machine again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really thin. Trying to see if I can feel the print, and it's just really thin. I can feel it, but I'm like, wow, that's really thin, the copper plate. So if you wanna see real quick, so it does emboss the paper, right, so you get this, so you know you have some pressure on there,
Oh, yeah.
right? And you also see that it didn't rip the paper, right, that's a big thing. So lift it up, it's still locked, so you can see it printed a little lightly. So what I would probably do in this case, before I try to recarve it, is I would increase my pressure to see if I can get more out of it. And just say, all right, that's my first print, wasn't great. It's not bad, you can see your image, right? Chances are it's probably needs to be deeper engraved, right? But that's just something you learn over time. But what we could do, if you want to, is I'll reset the pressure, we'll re-ink the plate, and we'll try it. What time is it? Make sure we're not. Are you okay with that? We're doing it one more time? And then I'll ink
Here,
it up?
I'm just gonna put my foot over.
Please do, yep.
Sit back down.
So I'm gonna make another blank one.
They're up there.
Yep, you can have a, here you go.
Thank you. Were you going to another class?
Decided not to.
Decide not to go?
I decided not to go in so late.
Oh, okay.
And besides, it's fine, I'll have another chance.
Yeah, she is in our home baron.
I told him we might try this at home.
Okay, we can do this. Actually, I was asked to do it at Fenor. And Abby asked me to do a class at Fenor. Yep, she is.
Within our purview to ask you. Aside from,
You do that, and it looks amazing.
So I added a half turn to it. It might be too much, but we'll find out when we put it up there.
It's gonna take
It's actually not as bad to clean up as you think.
And I'll help.
No, I was just laughing because the class after you being canceled, it gives you a little extra.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, then you don't need my help, and I can go to PayPal.
No,
Go to
yeah,
PayPal.
please do.
I will.
The class afterwards got canceled, so
So you have time to clean up and
I
you
have
don't
time
need
to clean up.
scramble.
Yep.
Cool.
Because we have to leave at 4.
that's why I was looking at the time to make sure
Yeah.
you guys have time to get to your.
Holly's already at the car.
How did our class go today?
Oh, good, yeah, I took it. So. She opted not to do the baronial dynamic class this time around, because she wanted to actually take classes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very glad I didn't have a class this year. Then I was able to take classes.
Since you're
Who's
gonna
gonna
take a
teach
1
this
hour
again
class,
at-
apparently,
where
or
they
there's not
have
anything.
artists?
And she didn't take the, yeah, she could have taken a
So
second
if I
class.
have blanks ready by then, I can start printing. That'd be fun.
Who's gonna display it?
I'm displaying it over, so yeah. Hopefully I'll have my rhino done by artisans, so that's the one I want to display.
What this,
He didn't say anything,
because I do wanna do
three
something.
that he wanted to do
Okay,
previously, so.
so he's probably with him.
Who's Prince Great Paper Towel?
Bet shop towels would also be great for this too.
We have those at home.
Blue ones.
Yep, they can be very well.
I keep a roll of blue ones in the car. Haven't ever needed it, but I keep it there.
Let's see if this does what I think it's gonna do. So when you get too much pressure on your press sometimes, on this particular one, this particular press, every press has its own personality. This one, the upper roller stops spinning, which causes my blankets to slip. So I have, these are my blanket adjustment tools. I clip them and say, no, you will move.
Nice.
Little personality adjustment, you know.
Life at our house gets really interesting.
Some messages from Richard. Jill and I are ready to go.
What do you tell those?
We're gonna miss the traffic. Hey, you should have told us.
I'm tired, but I'm happy.
I'm not sure where it's at.
The phone will- The phone will over the classes that would take us an even
Going through with more pressure.
The new classes at the same time. In his sleep schedule. Do you need extra hand?
No.
It definitely, I can see the extra pressure you added by how you're cranking.
I'm also trying not to lift the table,
Fair enough.
so it's a little bit of a, yes, there's definitely more oomph needed to spin the press, but also because the table's not very sturdy. Oh yeah, much better,
Whoa, good job.
much better.
Yep.
So, let's finish it out. You clean off your plate, and you can take your plate with you as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it came out much better,
Yeah.
right? A little more pressure. So that's the advantage of, even if your plates or your cuts are a little shallow, you can increase the pressure on the press to kind of force the issue.
Mhm.
I also tried to ink it a little bit better.
Okay.
Now.
You wanna clean it or?
Yeah, I was gonna, okay.
Okay.
Our partners are already sending both of us
Yeah.
messages going, where are you? We're ready to go.
Ah!
It's like we're in a 2-hour class. It's only been an hour and a half.
So, there you go with that, you can just grab, a piece of newsprint right there, and just scrub it down. And I'll ink yours up right now.
History alive, the medieval world.
Oh, is this a history
Yeah.
class?
Apparently so, yes.
Oh, nice, okay.
Interesting.
It's almost imperceptible.
Since you're gonna re-etch yours, it might actually come out nice and neat.
I hope so, maybe. The,
Not the thickness, but I can
the
definitely
bits
feel
from
it.
the, sandpaper might also show up a little bit.
Yeah, they are gonna show up a little bit.
So it'll be looking at it through the fog, the winter mist.
I should have tested that sandpaper beforehand,
I've got a picture
honestly.
of a fog coming up.
Oh.
It's building it. And
So I apologize for that.
The winter mist, you good?
Done work.
First try.
I was going off what it says, so I'm like,
So I'm
oh.
making a joke about the invasion.
So, I think to have to be, to Keene, is Dunmore. And on Keene, on the other side, Keene is.
It would depend on if Keene has the Tehachapi postcode or not.
Yep, it all comes off the zip code.
Everything up in the valley is
Mhm.
Tehachapi postcode, including Skeleton.
Ooh, yours is coming, your ink is looking really good.
Oh, good. That's our household badge.
Yeah, your ink looks really good. I can definitely see where the scratch is from the,
Yeah.
actually, it looks like it's like the wind blown, it's like wind blown.
Okay.
Honestly, this is so cool, just like it is.
Yeah,
There you
okay.
go, it's the streaks from the starting.
Yeah, right.
You're running so fast.
Dr. Dust.
I am getting less scared of drawing.
Good, you shouldn't be scared, you're doing a wonderful job.
I used to say I can do a landscape, but I can't do
So
anything
is it
else.
thicker than cardstock,
do
basically? Oh, yeah, that's like a thick cardstock.
Yeah, so they're thick cardstock.
It's interesting, we went to the academy up in Nordbach, 1 year, and Baroness Clodagh taught a paper making class.
Mm.
Oh,
And that was interesting, the shredded paper in a kind of a glue
Yeah.
slurry,
Fun.
and
Yeah.
then pressing it, and that was a lot of fun. So it'd be interesting to combine the two.
So, we have a person in our barony, he makes inks.
Mhm.
And I want him to try to make an ink that we can use.
Fiacre?
yes.
But I want him to, but he has to make it thicker than he normally does.
Ah, yeah.
The inks he normally makes are way too thin.
I have a bottle of.
So he'd have to add in some. This one, just bring under. 'Cause I don't wanna get too much on
So
your,
I think one of his next projects, he wants to try it on papyrus too.
is what?
Trying printing on papyrus.
Yeah, I wanna print on papyrus, I'm gonna print on vellum, I'm gonna print on a couple different things. See if we should do it this way.
But I told him that we could look at the dead exhibit, it would be really cool if we carved, you know, look at the dead.
That might be the way.
Printed it on papyrus and then translated.
Oh, wicked.
If I was with this translation.
Too much ink.
See, I'm.
Stuck down, huh?
Yeah, it's stuck down,
I do this stuff.
exactly.
I'm really good at saying. "Oh,
Need
you should
clamps.
try this."
Tweezers.
Tweezers, yeah.
You should try
I
this.
just haven't found your exact specific,
So I like the Vermont. Now,
but you
I-
actually are very good at shadowing stuff.
I really enjoy the kids stuff. I really enjoy teaching kids.
Just
I
so we don't get
really
so
enjoy,
much ink transfer onto the
just
paper
putting people.
from the area around.
My first award in this thing was the Guiding Hand for newcomers and kids. So that's always kind of been the thing, right? When you step down, he already has his office lined up. He's gonna be king. And he's like, "Are you taking a break?" Yes. I've been taking a couple of notes and, I've done 2 years as Kingdom office.
on
How
the,
many kids are gonna-
So I thought I already made a piece.
you did, it's
Which,
right
by
there.
the way, if you wanna come over during our tea, we'll probably have more unicorn fizzies. Because everybody liked unicorn.
That went over so
Everybody
well.
liked unicorn fizzies last year.
That went over,
That went over really well. Unicorn fizzies, everybody loved unicorn fizzies.
We need to have a joint wilderness, Dunmore Arts and Science thing up in the Tehachapi.
That would be really cool.
Everybody should make it a
That
tri-berry
would be really
thing.
cool.
In-
Now the.
in
And Nibelheim, yeah,
I'd like
Nibelheim.
that too, yeah.
Because as a person from Tehachapi, I pretty much, each of those is equal for me to go to events. It's an equal distance.
Yeah.
It would-
We should do that. I know, Eleanor actually comes to our arts and
Yeah.
science gatherings,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Well, we are hoping to get
Many
some
occasions.
regularly scheduled arts and sciences happenings going on now.
Yeah.
We just changed
We do
finance
twice a month.
officers.
I would like to encourage, we have the quarterly tri-berry fighter practice. Artisans should show up to that.
We could do that.
We should-
We talked about that.
We
I
should
didn't know
not-
anything about it.
Well,
And I'm
That's
the
why I
arts,
keep talking
we
and
about
say-
I'm the arts and science
say
officer for our
quarterly.
Bernie.
Yeah.
We say quarterly,
Loosely.
it's loosely quarterly, because
Because-
usually Churro's right in the way, or
Okay.
some other events right in the way.
And it's too cold around,
Right in the middle of January,
January.
Maybe
too
shift
cold.
it a month.
It's pretty really well. but you can
I'm
definitely
quite
see
fond
stretch.
of that practice.
Oh, wow, no, I'm pretty happy and I missed it.
10 minutes away
so for me, and what Bobby and I.
I mean, they're actually
thought
printed really
it's
well.
not gonna happen now or during bad time. But eventually what we
Yeah, I
see
missed the line,
is the
but-
progression, the logical
So if,
progression
looks swollen.
is that.
so if I were to do this for real, I probably would have, if I had done this to myself, I would re-sand everything
Okay.
with a higher grit. I'd
Yeah.
Start with the 800, go to 1,000, go to 2,000, then just retrace my lines, not really deeply, but just to make sure.
Wonder how a magic eraser would work.
In the future, I think it's.
So-
Cause that's a really, really super fine grit.
It might. Maybe, I've never tried it. That's entirely possible.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Maybe. Oh,
Let
do I
me
need
clean
to
it
put
off,
out?
yeah, let me clean this off so you don't get ink all over it.
So I even tried to make the muddy feet and the dark cup.
So this will teach me to, just, oh, let me try something new.
Oh, cool. That turned out nice.
The lines came out really, really well.
Excelente.
That's-
So it was deep enough.
It was deep on us, correct.
I forgot a line, but it was deep, but that's artist error, not necessarily,
And you can fix it.
and I can fix it.
For the next
And
print.
with practice, this changes. and-
Well, obviously, so this is the first time we've ever done it, right? It's the first time you have ever done this, first time we tried some things, first time I used these rounds,
Stippling with the awl works really well for the pomegranate seeds.
mhm.
It works really well.
Yeah, so try the magic eraser and see if that makes any difference.
So what I do recommend when you take these home, just because there's ink still in the lines, give them in a water and just do a light paper towel wash.
Are you doing any more prints?
I have
If
one that's
not-
inked. Actually, I'm gonna run that one through just because I have ink sitting on it.
Okay.
But, sure, 'cause it might have some ink on it still.
Okay.
I was gonna say, once you dip your last paper, you could
Yeah, then I can just,
dip it in that water.
Yep. let me just throw that on there.
If they have a Kleenex in the classroom or something, oh yeah, right there, I'll wrap it in the Kleenex.
Huh?
I'm gonna paint all over, around,
Oh, cool.
do something.
So I'll do this last print on this plate, so you guys can see that, yeah, look, that plate's been sitting around, it's about a year old.
Wrap
and
yours in Kleenex.
We're still gonna throw a print through it and see what happens.
Oh, you already did.
And if you wanna head out for your signature, don't
Yeah.
feel like you have to stay around. I'm just gonna do this because
Probably.
I've already inked it, so I'm gonna run it.
We got more and more anxious posts. Where are you? What's going
And
on?
we will take a picture and post that here.
Yeah, I can take a picture. If you guys want, if you want to take a picture of your prints, I can post them. If you don't want to, that's totally fine. You guys did a great job, though.
I did.
You want me to send it to you, or do you?
Yeah,
have
if you don't mind.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Print as well.
Because the steel's a little thicker.
Yes, the steel is much thicker.
Yeah, we tested it a couple of times.
Huh?
Couple reasons. Oh, there you go.
The barnacle blanket was slipping.
Okay.
I just felt it click through.
Alright, I'll send them.
There's no rushing.
Yeah.
There's a print.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Oh, wow, okay.
So,
I love that.
and that's a plate that's just been sitting around for about a year now. I'm gonna be able to just ink it and print it again. I would probably do it just a little bit to clean up the edges a little bit more, but the print turned out really well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very well defined, the lines themselves were very consistent. So that's something you're looking for. I have some prints that was not the case. So,
That is so cool.
I hope you enjoyed the class.
I did, thank you so
Hope you had
much.
fun. I know I gave a lot of history in the beginning, but
Isn't that what we're here for?
exactly. Thank you so much for coming. Please have a safe trip home.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.